Which best picture is the best picture? It's a question as old as time. Well, kind of. Anyway, join in, tag along, watch along with me as I go start to finish and watch and rank every Best Picture Oscar winner. Today, we get on our dancing shoes and we shuffle all the way back in the Wayback Machine to 1929's The Broadway Melody. The Broadway Melody, directed by Harry Beaumont. Described as a musical romance, it follows the lives of the Mahoney sisters. Hank, played by Bessie Love, and Queenie, played by Anita Page. The sisterly vaudeville act looks to make it big, and with the help of New York High Society member Eddie Kearns, played by Charles King, they team up in hopes that this will be their big break. However, chaos, failed attempts, and love triangles prove to make the road to success quite unclear. You mix all that together, you let it play out, and hey, we've got ourselves a movie. Before we slice and dice a crew, let's take a revisionist history check and look at 1929. Fair few celebrities were born this year, to be honest. Martin Luther King and Anne Frank, to name a couple. Couple movie stars, Audrey Hepburn, Grace Kelly. In events, Herbert Hoover approved the plans for the Hoover Dam, and the Vatican City became the smallest country as they signed the Lateran Treaty and separated from Italy. So, as you can see, and as I've said before, it is actually really important to note that these late 20s films, 30s films, 40s films are really on the precipice of innovation, and, invention is really still happening right in front of our eyes as we go through this series. I'm trying to keep that front of mind. It's really important. I don't want to be too harsh. Obviously, transitions, cuts, edits, all of that sort of stuff is going to get better as we go, but important not to penalize these early films for things that they couldn't really control. Last two things and then we'll smash through it. For the next 10 to 15 videos, I will continue to remind everyone how I'm going to score, and then once we get in a rhythm, it'll just be business as usual. So if you see on the screen now, there's 5 categories or divisions, all ranked out of 20. What I'm going to do is this will pop up back at the end, and I will give a score for each of these categories out of 20. We'll spit out a score of 100. That'll give you my score for the movie. And then as we get to 20, 30, 40, 50 films, we'll have a top 10 leaderboard with the best scores of everything we've watched so far. And it'll be really exciting to see how that plays out. Last thing, I've been using Wikipedia for all of my information, especially like figuring out the list and what years they won, and then, a little bit of background on the movies, etc. What I found though is the first 6 or 7 Oscar seasons weren't done in a calendar year, so it gets confusing. It splits them across 2 or 3 years, and you can actually look at a few different sources and it doesn't line up. So for example, Broadway Melodies come out in 1929, wins in 1930, but it's kind of got it winning in both years. It's confusing. It's a bit of a mumbo jumbo. From next video, what I'm going to do is the final winning year, kind of the end of the calendar years. So All Quiet on the Western Front, I'll have it for 1931, and then we're just going to roll on like that, and I think it's just going to make everything smoother and it's going to work out for all of us, and we're going to have a really happy time. All right, so let's jump into it. Yes, the Broadway Melody. So first off, really interesting contrast between Wings and the Broadway Melody, being the first two I've watched, considering that Wings obviously being silent, Broadway Melody having audio. And one thing I really did notice is the transition of actors right now. A lot of them are silent film screen stars, so I think you'll see the polish come in probably the late 30s into the 40s, where people are more seasoned and used to audio acting, where you could sense the uncomfortability and probably still finding themselves on screen, given most of them haven't had to speak for most of their parts. It felt like the movie just opened up, just shot it out of a cannon, hit 3 things in your face, and then all of a sudden we were off and running. It started with a little bit of music, but then jumped into obviously setting the scene with the Mahoney sisters, moving into their new apartment, tried to establish the love triangle, which I won't get too much into. I don't want to spoil if you're watching along. And then from there, it continued on and opened up a little bit further. I felt like if I was to choose, I would probably say it was a romance, and I'm marking it from that lens. The musical stuff, whilst it opened and I thought, okay, here we go, it's going to be, a musical of sorts, it definitely wasn't. It's definitely more the romance drama side of things. And to be honest, that's not actually a knock on it. I kind of wish though it did dive further into it, or adapted that kind of method of less is more. I felt like if we were going to do the romance, let's just go fully all in on it. One thing I had noted down here was there felt like there was a lot of big time gaps. And that's normal in films. Like, I'm not marking it down for jumping through, obviously, to make it work, but more so like we probably could have had 2 or 3 more conversations on the same topic that would have really helped build further context. And, there are certain conversations that were had, and then all of a sudden it's jumped to the next day and things have drastically changed, and that could have been solved on screen with having 1 more conversation. So if you take that for what it is and you have a look at some of those things, it brings it down in that sense for me. One of the real redeeming qualities though was it was actually sneakily funny. And I want to highlight Hank. She had some absolute perler of one-liners. I love the old-timey insults too. She had this redhead line which was hilarious, and the choir girl rebutted her by being like, "You little peanut," or something along those lines. It was actually hilarious, so really appreciated that. On the note of Bessie Love, she had most of my favourite moments, or sorry, Hank, as she's known in the film. Really displayed some depth and real emotion in a lot of her scenes, and on that I had noted I wish they did more close-up shots, because there were a couple of close-up shots where we got real emotion, you know, a few tears, and we could see the look in Bessie or Hank's eyes, and that really played a big part in adding emotion to the film. We just didn't get much of that though, and a lot of the scenes where they're acting it out or they're having an argument, or you know there's a point of tension, it's just really far away, so we're not getting that context, and you kind of have to almost imagine it yourself. I feel if we got a little bit closer on a lot of those scenes, it would have had more impact, especially because the scenes where it did, you really felt it. Short villain check on Warrener. Again, he's not really a villain. He's, I guess, the bad guy in some people's eyes, and he doesn't do too much to, I guess, bring that sort of tone, because he's actually playing quite nice. Probably a little bit forceful on the back end of it, but again, I'll let you watch and put your own opinions on that. So I'm not really going to give him any kind of score. It's unable to say that he was really villainous or have to be menacing in any sort of way to add to the film. He did bring tension and good spirits to one of the scenes where things pop off, and there's a really funny cut when that happens. So look, 1 out of 10 Warrener. We still haven't hit any really good villains. Can't wait until we get our first big villain on the series. I am fiending to see somebody be menacing on screen. So look, crew, that's going to wrap it for that one. The Broadway Melody didn't have too many standout points, and if you can see on screen there, I'm giving this one a 31 out of 100. You can see the breakdowns of the categories there to really pause and dissect if you want to. It's definitely not going to be one that sticks out to me, and not one that I will watch again, and I did thoroughly enjoy Wings a lot more than Broadway Melody from the two so far, so that's important to note, and we'll keep kicking on and we'll start to watch some really good ones. I'm really interested to see what the first one that comes along that just rocks my socks is, so make sure you subscribe, make sure you like, comment, get invested, crew. I would love to have you all around as we go on this journey together. And with that, crew, a massive thank you if you've stuck around this long. I really hope you enjoyed it, and I really appreciate you if you've watched this far through. And as always, I'm not a critic, just someone with a lot of spare time.